So next on the agenda is asset management plan presentation. It is on page 4 of your packet. And there's a PowerPoint. Okay. We move. God, I keep getting caught up.
It's on, Victor. You just have to press the standby button.
Snipe it. I'm just. No, I'm just. This is okay. I'm not recusing myself.
I'll take care of that.
It's coming up nicely. Thanks for having us here today. I've got a group to present our asset management program. We've been working on it for the last 3 years diligently. One of the main reasons we really needed this plan is because, as you've seen tonight and all at the beginning of this year, we've retired a lot of people recently. We've retired 107 years of experience this year already. And with that many people leaving, we've got to capture all that information. We do not want it to leave with all their knowledge. So we've been planning on doing this for quite some time. In past years, we have done great work. Past directors have done great work with maps and books of water, sewer, and stormwater. But that's what they are. Is we can go back to the 1800s and see where our water lines are. But it was time to upgrade. Tonight I have with me Wright Pierce engineer Kristen Lamancy, NHDES superstar Sharon Null, and Assistant Director Jeremy Clay, all with me to help present this tonight. As I said, we've been working on this for 3 years, and yeah, I should click that, huh? And so I'll start with what is asset management, and that's what the presentation is going to be with those issues today, is to try to measure our assets. Well, what are our assets? We got funding from NHDES to do GIS labeling and computer programming and asset management for our wastewater horizontal, wastewater vertical, drinking water, and stormwater. It's all pushed by our environmental concerns that we have in Claremont. Our last wastewater discharge permit made us insisted that we had better plans for maintenance throughout our system, our distribution system, collection system, and these assets are also have to be tracked for our SRF funds. SRF is state revolving loan funds. As they're giving us money, they want to make sure that we're protecting our assets and have them on a process where they'll be replaced. And this is the definition. I don't even want to read it, but we we're doing the systematic processing of operating and maintaining and upgrading and disposing of assets. So that's telling us how long an asset, a pipe will last, a catch basin will last, and planning for the future. And how important it is to, and what level of service is acceptable to our customers. The history of this in Claremont, besides being ancient with all the map records, we started the sewer asset management plan in 2008 with a full set of maps like these. It has every sewer pipe, every manhole that we've done that was in the process in the city, and we did that for the sewer projects. The problem with that is that it wasn't interactive. Anything that we would do since 2008 till now, we couldn't easily change the plans. Now we have a GIS program that in place that we don't need paper records. We can take pictures and put it into our program. We can measure things. And the reason we got started on this 3 years ago was because DES came up with a grant process to help us manage our money, manage our funds so that we could have our water rates and treat our financial positions better in water, sewer, and stormwater. We now have a real dynamic, real-time update of asset conditions. I'm going to let Kristen take it through the next set.
Thanks, Vic. All right, so what is asset management? Vic went through the definition a couple minutes ago. Here's an outline of the process. I like to think of asset management as a process. It's important to note that this is not a one-and-done activity. It's a continuous effort that has already been incorporated into the city's day-to-day operations, and its value lies in its ability to be dynamically updated in real time. So the first step is identifying the existing infrastructure. This was done by the city and Wright Pierce through this program using their existing GIS data systems. A gaps analysis was performed to identify what assets and asset characterizations were missing, such as pipe size, age, material. Some of this missing information was inputted into the systems, and the city is still working to complete this effort. I'll go into detail a little later about why missing data is important. So the table on the left gives you an idea of the number of each type of asset within the city. So for example, there are 2,300 drainage pipes that were cataloged and identified through this program, 1,500 gravity sewer pipes, 700 water valves, a lot of different pieces to keep track of. The table on the right gives the approximate value of each system. So the total value of all stormwater, water, and wastewater systems within the city is over $250 million. This number can be considered the plant replacement value, or the approximate cost to install everything from scratch. Significant amount. So the city already had an ArcGIS license. We took advantage of that and a program called Cartograph, which is an asset management program. And these have become important tools that the city is using day to day in their operations. These programs house the asset location and their characterization data. So again, the value in asset management lies in the ability to update in real time. An operator goes into the field, collects information about an asset, a pipe, a hydrant, a valve, a manhole, and can automatically update in the field on a tablet that information and those characterizations into the GIS system where it will be recorded and maintained in perpetuity. So we've went through and identified the existing assets. The next step is to develop a level of service agreement, or LOS. The city developed a single LOS for all three of its utilities, which was a very streamlined process. Not all municipalities chose to go this route. I've seen other cities where they have separate ones for water, wastewater, stormwater. I feel like this was a very advantageous decision that the city made to help streamline how they track their goals for each of these utilities, especially since they're all umbrellaed under the same division. So here's an example of some of the system reliability objectives that the city put into their level of service agreement. These goals will be reviewed annually to ensure that the correct metrics are being tracked and appropriate goals are being set for the type of level of service that the city is looking to provide to its users. All right, so we've gone through a couple steps. We've identified the existing infrastructure. The city has identified the level of service it wants to provide to its users. So now we are in the risk analysis and prioritization stage of the process. This is really the heart of the process and centers around three terms: the likelihood of failure, the consequence of failure, and the business risk exposure. Likelihood of failure, exactly what it sounds like. The probability or chances of a specific asset failing. It fails when it is considered to not be able to provide good service or is too expensive to maintain. And while there are many things that can cause an asset to fail, there are some pretty common predictors such as age, material type, failure history, break history, and location of that asset. Consequence of failure is a term to describe the variability in the impacts of an asset failing. So if you have a very large water main on a busy road that is providing service to thousands of users, the consequence of that water main failing is much more significant than a small 2-inch pipe that is only providing service to a single household. And we would like to treat those two assets differently. The variability, in addition to how many users or what type of users are impacted for consequence of failure, also includes how much cost there is associated to that fail to the owner and what type of environmental impacts are anticipated. So we can take these likelihood of failure scores, consequence of failure scores, and combine them to come up with a business risk exposure, or BRE score. So let's take one asset. Here is it's hard to see, that yellow line. Here is a water pipe. It's a water main off of Winter Street near the city's water treatment plant. It's 20 inches diameter, made of cast iron, and is over 100 years old. So as we work through the math and the different characteristics or criteria of each asset, we can assign LOF and COF scores to this water main pipe. The scale, again, is on LOF and COF are both on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very low risk, 10 being very risky if that pipe were to break. So as we can see working through the math, this pipe had a rounded LOF score of 7 and a rounded COF score of 8. So we take these two numbers and we plot them on our chart and we come up with a BRE score that puts it into this red category. So we think we're done. We're going through this process. And Vic says, but wait, didn't the city reline this pipe in 2007? And this is the historic knowledge that he mentioned earlier. This is the information that may not necessarily be reflected in GIS because it was a quick project that happened in a series of locations and was difficult 12 years ago to track geospatially. Now we have the ability to do that. And by updating our scores based on the fact that this pipe was lined and it now has a different material type and a different age, suddenly slides down the scale and is no longer in a high-risk category, but is in a lower risk category. This is also a great example of why missing information is important. I'm not sure if this is too crass to say, crap in, crap out. So if you don't have good data, you're not going to get good results. And it's important that we get as much information and accurate information in here for us to be able to take these scores and make decisions based on them. We want to be confident in the decisions we're making. So we have our risk analysis complete. We are now in the risk prioritization phase of the process. So based on the category, your A, B, C, D, or E, recommendations are developed for each asset or each group of assets. Recommendations include inspection, repair, or rehabilitation. And what's key here is that inspections may result in new BRE scores, like we saw with that water main pipe sliding from an A to a C. BRE scores may be inflated by unknowns. We don't always have all the information. We don't always know the age of the pipe or the material, so we have to make assumptions, and that can inflate the scores. But by doing an inspection, you can get an idea of the true condition of the pipe and make a determination on when you think it'll be required to repair or replace that asset. Again, this is important why we need to identify missing information and add in as much data as possible. We want those accurate BRE scores. So we went through this process for all of the city's assets. There were almost 10,000 of them. And the results here show that about 15%, based on the information that we had at the time, were recommended for repair or replacement in the next 10 years. So this equates to about $58 million in capital improvement projects. Again, this cost could decrease once the assets are inspected. If they're found to be in good condition, we feel it would be appropriate to shift them into a lower priority category. So each of these recommended improvements, each of these groups, were assigned to a priority category for repair or replacement. Group A work is to occur in the next 3 to 5 years. Group B work is to occur in the next 5 to 10 years. And typically, these would be the only groups that we think would be important to focus on. But I want to point out that Group C is considered low priority because we don't think we're going to have to touch it in the next 20 plus years. However, there it is. Over 50% of the city's assets are in this category. So while it may be 20 years out, those assets value at over $115 million. So planning for that work really needs to start now so that the costs don't surprise us in 20 years. And now Jeremy, the Assistant Director of Public Works, is going to go on to a little more detail of potential costs and some of the next steps.
All right, so if we look at this chart, you can see that in 2020 we're looking at just over $5 million, and 2022 we're looking at 1.39. And if you look out from 25 beyond, it's 8.72. So one of the things that we can do with asset management is we can pull those numbers to the left and replace and repair these structures earlier, which gives us a nice flat budget of $5.8 million a year for the next 10 years would be fantastic for Mary, because we know that a flat budget is what we need. Looking forward, our next steps, we're going to continue to collect the missing data. We are going to update that data into GIS. We're going to identify and provide training to the staff, which we do on a regular basis. We are going to coordinate that between Cartograph and ArcGIS. And we're going to perform biannual audits of the GIS data sets to make sure that we're capturing the correct things. And one of this is the exciting part, maybe not to you guys, but to me, to apply AMP methodology, asset management, to other city assets. So what we did with this grant is we spent it on water, wastewater, and stormwater. What we did with the knowledge that we gained from that grant in Cartograph was to apply those practices to pavements, sidewalks, signs, lights, line painting, you name it. The parking garage, I just worked on that all day today, setting up a maintenance plan for the parking garage. It's coming along fantastically. So this grant didn't just give us the ability to manage those three assets. It gave us the knowledge to manage all of our infrastructure assets. And then finally, we're gonna use that knowledge and this excitement to create a culture of asset management within the DPW, and it's going to be fantastic. It's what we need to do, and it's going to help us a lot in the long run. Take care.
Well, I'd like to thank our past directors. Scott Sweet was the one that really got this thing started. And in past, Bruce Temple, or all the past directors, all the way back for years when before Claremont was a city even, they were keeping great records. The new technology has really helped. But I'd like to invite Sharon Knoll up to speak.
I just want to say I'm Sharon Knoll from New Hampshire DES, and on behalf of, I work in wastewater, not literally in it, but on behalf of wastewater, stormwater, and drinking water, I just want to commend Claremont Public Works for the fantastic job they've done embracing asset management. They've had struggles along the way, and instead of just saying, oh, we can't do this, because we've heard that from other communities, they said, okay, what do we need to do? Where do we need to get help? They've reached out to others. They've been a role model for other communities. So I want to take the minute to really encourage you guys to support what they're doing. Other communities are taking this farther, like they are, with going into buildings. Police and fire are getting involved. So it's not just for water infrastructure, but it does really help understand the value. I mean, how many of you knew that you owned $254 million of water infrastructure assets? That's a lot. And you need to take care of that. You wouldn't, if you owned a house like that, you wouldn't let it fall apart, right? So that's all very, it's great information to understand how do you set rates that are appropriate and be transparent to your users. It's all really critical information, and it's information that's needed. We just saw, 32 years of experience walk out the door, and that was part of the 107 just this year. That's critical information, and understanding what it costs to deliver the service that for clean water, taking that water away when it's been used, and controlling stormwater. Those are all expensive services, and understanding the value of that is critical. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have lights?
Are there any questions from the council?
Vic, can you press standby to get that?
You're questioning the council.
Yes, Councilor Keir.
I don't so much have questions. I just more wanted to express my real excitement about this. I know I've mentioned a couple times, especially around budget season, about how if we don't maintain what we have, it's only going to cost us more in the end. So this is so exciting that we're being proactive to look at what do we have and what will we need over time. That way we can plan better. So I'm super excited about this, and I'm really happy you guys have done this, and congratulations. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the council? I'd like to thank everybody who came here to be part. I'd like to finish what I was saying, please. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight and sharing your excitement for what DPW has been able to accomplish, and for such a great overview. I think the assistant director answered my thoughts when I was looking at the presentation, which is you're going to be able to use this information to kind of prioritize which roads you do, because you know what the status of the underlying infrastructure is. So this is huge, and I really, really appreciate your initiative and your desire to be out front leading. And so thank you for all of the work that you did. Any other comments from the councilor? Mr. Gauthier?
Francis Gauthier, Ward 1. The question that I have, how many % of those pipes that you want to replace are you going to actually just reline? That can create a huge cost savings. Or you just want to put them in all brand new? That's my question.
I think I can answer that relatively quickly. Part of asset management is not just what are we going to do, but how are we going to do it. So so we haven't delved into that exactly yet, but we can reline pipes, we can replace pipes, we can do the same thing with the roads. That's one of the reasons that you saw up on Veterans Park Road and Winter Street we chip sealed, because asset management dictates that it may not be a full depth repair, it may not be a shim overlay, it may be a box cutout, it may be crack sealing is the right thing to do, it may be a chip seal is the right thing to do, and we can do the same thing with all parts of the infrastructure. It may not, taking our dollars and extending the lifespan of each asset individually is what we're doing. So it may not be just slip lining a pipe, and at this point I don't think we could begin to answer how many feet of slip lining we're going to do. I think that's a broad question, and we're looking at 20 years worth of work when we ask that.
So that's going to be part of your, your portfolio?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, again, thank you for coming up here to be part of this presentation and for your very kind words. So, Would the council like to take a break before we go on to our next agenda items?
Yeah.
Yeah.